Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Get Your Shit Together Man show. I am your host, Aaron Alanis, and today we're going to be talking about how isolation and feeling lonely is 100% your choice. But again, before we dive into that today, I want to tell you all something really, really cool. Now, for those of you all that are into link trees and you have like a business or whatever the case may be, I made our link tree, and at the time I'm recording this video, it's actually 2:32 on April 29th on Saturday, right? So right now it is technically Friday night when you're woo, but I didn't do anything too crazy, right? Me and my buddies ended up grabbing a really good dinner at this place called Moxie's here in Houston, Texas. If you all ever go, say Aaron sent you. And yeah, it's one of the places I'm trying to be a regular at here in Houston just because I like the environment. And it's a really cool place to just be in and just absorb kind of the energy, right? I always get the valet parking, and I always feel like the man because like for $8, $9, you can feel like the man. It's like, yeah, that's what it's a cool little feeling, right? But today we ended up having a cool little seminar. So for those of you all that don't know, I am a part of a mentorship networking kind of group called The Standard, right? So shout out to Hafiz Bauku, and shout out to Mr. Joe Hines, the two co-founders of the group. Without those men in my life over the last year and some change, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't be who I am today, and I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done as of today, right? So before we even dive into the whole story and kind of what ended up happening, on Friday, which was, technically a few hours ago, right? I want to mention that we have a newsletter, right? And I don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, join the newsletter. We have merchandise too. Buy the merch. If you want to get the merch to go and rep the brand and what we're building, hey, go for it. I ended up putting it together just because I want to make sure that we're starting this podcast from the best starting point possible in order to make sure that we're doing things the right way from the jump, right? Thankfully, I have experience with building basics, which again, if you want more help with your fitness, go ahead and book a call using the second link below, or watch the Alpha Accelerator webinar using the very first link in the video description of this video or in the pinned comment. You'll see it right there. You can learn how I went from average to alpha in my own right and how I've helped other people do the same thing, right? But now that those are out of the way, also we have a Discord community. Join the group. That's where you can interact with myself. And we also have a highlights channel too on YouTube, meaning we have our main Get Your Shit Together Man show, and then we also have a highlights channel with these longer videos chopped up in a shorter format. That's a little bit easier to consume if you're on a time crunch, right? And yeah, so let's go ahead and dive in. So today, I ended up getting asked by Hafiz and Joe to do a presentation. Now, the presentation was pretty much going to be premised around my biggest lessons as a man, right? Now, for those of you all that know my story, again, during episode number 1 of this show, I ended up telling you all a little bit about it, right? But if you're brand new, I was someone that when I grew up, I inherited depression and anxiety and other mental health things from my biological father, right? It was just something you're born with. So growing up, I dealt with depression and anxiety and everything else like that really hindered my ability to fully express myself as an individual, right? And during 2020, I ended up coming across certain kinds of masculinity content online that pushed me to suppress my feelings, suppress my emotions, and just focus on getting your money and just focus on getting your muscle and just like full-on aggression, right? So guess what? When you ignore kind of your feelings and kind of, the way you're actually like operating as a human, you can actually go pretty far, right? So if you're just looking for progress in your life, hey, just be a stone cold person, become a savage, go hard, develop the eye of the tiger, but just don't care about anybody, and you can get there 100% if you're willing to sacrifice everything. But the real question is, are you willing to go to that extent for what you want? Because I promise you that there's people out there that have done it by being a good person along the way. And I think there's certain levels of success that a lot of people don't really take into account, or there's certain ways to go about achieving success, right? So the first way is, or if you want to even break it down to this way, right? I think there's 3 ways of certainty, like 3 different ways that you can be certain of success, right? Or let me put it one more time, right? I think, and I truly believe, that there are 3 different levels when it comes down to your certainty in achieving success, right? So the first way is if you're going to be successful. These are the people saying, what if I'm going to reach my goal? What if I never get there? And they're always doubting the possibility of it happening, right? Now, the second kind of certainty is the when certainty. So there's certain people that you meet that are just like, man, once time catches up for you, like you're just gonna, like you just have the talent, you have the grit, you have the willpower, you're willing to do what it takes. We just got to give it another year, 2 or 3, and you'll get there, right? Now, the third level is the how, which I think is the most important part, because not only do you want to be certain with if you're going to get there, not only do you want to be certain with when you're going to get there, but how you get there is just as important, because you can be a famous YouTuber talking about all these kinds of things here that may be spreading more hate on the world, but you can also be a famous YouTuber if that's your goal, spreading a lot of love in the world too. So it's like, how do you want to get there? And are you willing to maybe take a little bit longer going down the more virtuous path than maybe the shorter way, just riding trends and riding negativity and spewing hate? Hopefully with you all seeing the way I operate, I definitely lean towards the former, if I'm recalling correctly, in terms of me just wanting to do things the right way, right? But that's another side tangent that I just wanted to mention while we're on the topic, right? But me as a man, when they asked me, if he ended up calling me one day, like, hey, Aaron, by any chance, man, can you speak about, your biggest lesson in a man? And for me, I've learned so much. I've learned things about, saying no to drugs. I've learned things about pick the right woman. The quality of the people that you entertain in your life is going to be the quality of your life. And I've also learned about physical health being really more valuable than wealth. We'll go on another side tangent about that a little bit later. I'm actually working on scripting a video about fitness being the foundation to self-transformation, right? I've learned more about money being a really good thing, because a person that has the most money has exchanged something of greater value, equal or greater value in exchange for that money. So someone who's a billionaire has provided the world at least $1 billion worth of value, if not 10 times more or 100 times more, right? So it's like the best version of yourself is like very financially wealthy if you're thinking about servicing other people and receiving cash as a byproduct of that. So when they ended up asking me this question, I was kind of stumped on it for a little bit. I wanted to talk about discipline. I wanted to talk about courage. I wanted to talk about understanding the power of the mind and quantum physics and having something greater than yourself to believe in. But what I ended up deciding to talk about was isolation. And I think many of us men as a whole, people in this generation as in its entirety, which again, on another side tangent, I think the reason why I'm really excited about this podcast is because I feel like I've reignited my sense of purpose. I remember wanting to only go down the fitness influencer lane. I remember only wanting to make fitness content or nutrition content, but I feel like that's it hinders the value that I provide to people into such a singular lane that, although that's cool, I just want to be able to help people out in a really bigger way and just serve the greater good more so than just helping people build better bodies. I love basics. It is my baby. It is my primary. It's what keeps the lights on and everything. I just want to make sure that I'm doing more than just that, though, and that's where this podcast comes into play, right? But when we were talking about isolation, I remember thinking about the times in my life to where I felt like isolation was a mandatory thing for me in order to achieve success. Because you always hear people online talking about like, man, the road to the top is lonely, and they're not lying. Like right now I'm still on the road. Like I'm, recording a podcast at like 2:40 or so in the morning on a Friday night, technically Saturday morning, right? There's no one here. It's just me and my little husky in my bedroom, right? And it's just me doing this stuff, right? I've definitely sacrificed a lot of friendships that could have been longer lasting than they have been. I've sacrificed relationships. I've sacrificed women I thought I was going to marry because I was more focused on my purpose in life and more focused on my business success and more focused on, providing more value to the world. I've sacrificed so many things in order to get to a certain point to where I'm, pretty comfortable, if you want to put it that way, that isolation was definitely a part of it, but here's the thing. Like you have to understand that isolation is merely a bridge. It's not a forever destination. And a lot of guys don't understand that, right? Meaning a lot of people think that when they are going from, let's say, average, right? Just to bring like the webinar kind of stuff into play, right? If they're average and they want to go to alpha, I know it sounds corny. That's what I was telling myself when I was 220 pounds and I was cutting down to 170, right? I wanted to go from average to alpha. And pretty much my whole thing is I remember thinking to myself that I was going to have to isolate myself forever. So in order for me to go from 220 pounds to super shredded and more positive and more money and more social status and more girls or whatever the case may be, I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to have to isolate myself and I'm going to have to read all these books and just put the work in, and eventually I'll get there. And guess what happened? I got there, but I never really graduated from being isolated to getting a group of people that were just like me at that new season. right? So what ends up happening is that a lot of guys, when they're trying to become more successful, is that they isolate themselves for far too long, and they don't understand that isolation is merely the bridge between who you are now and who you're becoming. And once you become that person, then guess what you got to do after that? You isolate yourself for another season, and then you go to the next level. And you isolate yourself for another season, and then you go to the next level. There's this podcast or this YouTube channel that I get a huge kick out of listening to, which is actually a big inspiration for this show, believe it or not, called First Man, right? He makes a lot of content just for guys, and that's kind of his purpose, and he makes really good stuff. And he's the reason why I kind of decided to make this whole Get Your Shit Together, man, brand again. Shout out to you, man. You seem like a good dude. And just have the microphone set up, just have the camera going on, and just kind of like providing value. And you all can listen to it more casually on Spotify, Apple, YouTube if you want the visuals, whatever the case may be, right? And to be very upfront with you all, right? I think sometimes when we listen to certain YouTubers out there, and I'm not talking about First Man, but there's other people out there that I've consumed that have helped me out a ton. But let's say, for example, we hold certain people that are humans to these larger than life characters, and they're still trying to figure stuff out themselves, right? So I have a good friend of mine that was talking a lot about being in the top 1%, right? And that's what he was pitching. It's like, hey, if you want to be in the top 1%, you can't do what 99% of other people do. And that is more true than you can possibly imagine. But the way that I took it at the time, I'm not saying he said this is the way that I interpreted it, is I remember thinking to myself, okay, if I want to be in the top 1%, that means I'm incompatible with 99% of people. And that can be true or false depending on the way you choose to see the world. I know for me, I don't necessarily want to feel like I'm incompatible with the Starbucks barista. I don't want to necessarily feel like I'm incompatible with the Whataburger drive-through person. I don't want to feel like I'm incompatible with the gym trainer or the nutritionist. Like, I want to feel like I'm able to just interact with anybody that I choose to, right? And I think many times when we are going in this journey towards success, we are doing it from a place of inferiority, unfortunately, right? We're trying to fix a hole in our heart that can only be filled with spiritual enlightenment or emotional, healing or physical health or financial security, right? But then we try to do it by being greater than other people versus being the best version of ourselves, right? So I remember thinking to myself during that moment of time to where I was isolating myself, but on the surface, I seemed more successful because tangibly I was. I remember thinking to myself that I was better than everybody. I had this sense of arrogance that I just couldn't shake, but my arrogance was really a form of insecurity because anyone that has to feel like they're better than anybody else at one point felt like they weren't. And if you don't necessarily get rid of that bug or that demon, if you want to call it that, it's like a little critter, like a spiritual critter that's just like taking the life and love out of you, man. If you're not careful, you'll end up burning a lot of bridges that don't need to be burned simply because you refuse to see another human being as another human being just like you are, right? So during that period of time, I was, in a very weird headspace because I was a person that was channeling all my pain and turning it into what? Power. And I think nowadays people are always talking about turning their pain into power. Got to motivate. But again, like I mentioned in the first episode, like what is the purpose of us being in business if we're only looking to achieve a certain stature? Like, are we trying to create more life into this world, or are we looking to create more damage and more negativity into this world? And for me, I refuse to do anything negative and spew anything that I feel like would get good clicks, but would damage my integrity with myself. Like for me, I'm a very simple person. Do I like nice things? Yes. But I'm not going to allow my values to be compromised by numbers on a screen. And that can be banks, that can be social medias. I don't care. I'm going to do me, and I'm going to help my people the way I know how to help my people. Point blank period. That's it, right? And when it came down to me understanding what I stood for, that was done in a season of isolation. So isolation does have its perks, but many people don't understand the cons to it. And obviously you can get in your head about things. You can start dissociating from people. You can develop a sense of arrogance around people. And really you can start getting a little too caught up in your head, and you're not able to really socially connect with the outside world around you. And once you understand that people are the key to everything that you want in life, and you are someone else's key to everything they want in life, then you will start understanding the synergistic relationship that we're all supposed to be having with one another here on planet Earth, right? But to get back to another story, right? I'm going to say this other story too, because I think this is really going to hit home for some of you all, because I remember a long time ago, right? I was dating this girl. And when I met this girl, I was just beginning to build some form of momentum in my life. I was pushing hard. I was, in pretty good shape. This was a while back. And I was really seeing the vision for where I wanted my life to go, right? And when she met me, I was all hustle, all muscle, but like really nothing else to prove for it besides just the sense of like certainty in a dream that I was planning out. I was still living at home at the time. I was still learning about the self-improvement stuff, and I was in the very beginning stages of building the version of myself that I am today, right? And during that time, I had met this girl, and she was probably the best thing that ever happened to me at that time. But she wasn't without her flaws like I was with mine, because the way I built that whole relationship was based off of like toxic things. And I wish I could take some of the things back. I wasn't the kindest. I wasn't the most respectful. I didn't want to validate her because I saw stupid videos online that I thought would help me, like it was immature, idiotic, and not the most representative of my most authentic self. But unfortunately, when you're broken, you attract more broken people. And it was one of those like karmic relationships or soul ties, if you want to call it. I did a lot of research on that stuff, right? And I definitely think that was karma getting back at me, right? So when the whole relationship was going, it was chaotic on both sides. I would have a breakdown. She would have a breakdown. She would have a meltdown. It was a mess, absolute mess, right? And on the surface, you would never guess, right? But it was just one of those situations to where I refused to heal. She refused to heal. And together it was just a big mess, right? And towards the end, the whole situation ended up falling apart, and frankly, she ended up breaking up with me, right? It was long overdue, to be honest with you. But, I deserved it kind of thing, right? But here's the thing that I want you all to keep in mind. The way that she had her darkness, because her darkness was way different than mine, right? Like looking back on my life, like I definitely had some things to deal with, but it was nowhere near the level of what some people on this planet go through, right? For her, she had something bad happen to her, like SA, for y'all that know what I mean, when she was a kid, and then she had like family members do certain things to her. Her dad had drank a lot, abused her mom, like hit and stuff, and it was just like a chaotic environment that she had growing up. And she ended up seeing all that stuff. Dad ended up dying from like cancer or something. So then she grew up without her dad, and then when a woman grows up without her dad, and the relationship she saw was turbulent, she ended up having no guidance, and she ended up going into a lot of other turbulent relationships, right? So she had some bad things happen in those relationships to her too. And by the time she met me, and she hadn't healed those things in her life, then I was the one that was supposed to be filling those things in her life. And then for me, I had my biological father, who wasn't necessarily the best, but he never did anything like that to me. I never want to do anything like that, right? And my whole thing was just telling myself the wrong story, because my stepdad was a stud, and it took me so long for me to understand that my mom did an amazing job at finding me a dad. I had a father, but I didn't have a dad. And once my mother met my stepfather, that's when I started understanding just gratitude and just looking at what you have. For those of you all that don't know, I was helping out my family a little bit last year because my stepfather had his lungs transplanted, right? So I was helping out where I could here and there, and it was a very testing time for my life, for my family. That's where I learned responsibility and just learning when to step up to the plate when necessary, right? So really, the whole point I want to get to, guys, is that girl went through some of the darkest stuff ever, right? She had men just abuse her and use her and do terrible things to her. And then when we would get together, it was bad. And then here's the thing. I went through those things, Plus, I was going out of my depression, and then I was consuming all those stupid YouTube videos telling me to not validate a woman when she's beautiful. When I don't think you know what I mean? Like I was trying to go too hard with like having a backbone and being stone cold and this masculine person that I thought I had to be. When really, if you're trying to be masculine, you're probably not. Like I'd much rather be competent and goofy than incompetent and stoic. I think that's where a lot of people don't make that click. It's like, man, you got to actually be a man, not act like a man, and a man is responsible for what he has his name attached to. A man honors his commitments. A man is there for his family. A man is kind and respectful and loyal, but still strong and willing to show people what he's made out of and protect those who need the protecting, right? And when you can find that balance within yourself, because again, another side tangent, I think there's 3 levels to like developing your masculinity. I think first, if you don't have someone to teach you how to start, I think you end up being a softie. So this is like, you get if it's like a dating situation, hey, you get your flowers, you don't even know her name. It's like, hey, baby, I think you would look so good. I can't even like sound square. I think I was even sounding low-key smooth there. Let me see. Like, hey, baby, do you want to go out with me? Like something like that, man. Like I think when you start out kind of like softy, right? And then the second level is I think you get too hard because you want to correct that stuff, and then you read the books about like I was there too, how to fix nice guy stuff, and then it's like, I don't want to be nice anymore. So then you get too angry, but then being too emotional is like the same kind of it's the same side of it's a different side of the same coin. You're still too emotional, whether you're trying to be overly nice or overly aggressive to compensate for those weak tendencies, if we're just going to be honest, right? But then the third level is where you keep the backbone that you had on the second level from developing your masculinity. But you also learn how to be kind, respectful, and being kind just means more. Is more than just being kind to other people, man. It's like being kind to yourself, respecting other people, such as yourself as well. Loyalty, you're loyal to yourself. You have integrity. You treat people well, equal, and you have genuine humility. And again, humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking more of other people. I learned that from Alex Hormozy, and I love that definition of it. But just to get back to earth with the entire kind of, point of this video and, audio, because podcast, right? The girl that I was dating back then, fellas, and I was going to say fellas and, because it's like, I'm Hispanic, so sometimes it's like the O's and the A's. The fellas already had an A, so I'll say ladies and gentlemen. So that girl that I was dating, ladies and gentlemen, she had gone through things that I'll never go through in my life, right? She had seen probably the most evil that I've ever known that someone can see. Violence, drug abuse, this, that, the third, and she's had it acted upon herself. And when she broke up with me, because I just wasn't being a good boyfriend, and I was pouring so much into her, to truth be told, that I had nothing left for me. And then I just became a shell of myself, and I wanted everything that I'm doing now, but I just couldn't perform because I was trying to help that, but like it wasn't my business to fix that, right? And if you're expecting a partner to fix you guys and you're trying to fix someone else, it's like look in the mirror first, fix that, and then let whatever unfolds. But the story goes as such: she broke up with me. I was like, took me off guard, right? The signs were clear, but now looking back, I can make sense of the senseless at the time. So I remember that when I was dropping off the last of her stuff, I was telling her that I was afraid that I wasn't going to find another woman that loved me for me again. Because at the time, one of my biggest kind of insecurities was that if I got successful, if I started getting my money up, if I started upgrading my truck, which again, I just upgraded my truck recently out of necessity, I was going to hold off on it because, truth be told, that's kind of one of my things where it's like, man, do I want to get the lifestyle, and then is the girl gonna like me for me, or the stuff you come with? That's a big thing that for a lot of guys to start building themselves up a little bit. I remember telling her that, man, or baby, are you? I'm afraid that no one's gonna like me for me. And then she said, "You're BSing yourself here, and you're a good guy," or something like that, right? And after that, I said we should still stay in touch, which was kind of a simpy move, but I was with this girl for a long time. I said we should still stay in touch because good people are hard to find. And she said, mind you, she was the woman that had been SA'd, hit, slapped, nasty stuff, right? She looked at me dead in the eyes and she said, Aaron, I think there's plenty of good people out there. You just have to be open to meeting them. And when she said that, I knew that I had been BSing myself for far too long about the reason I was isolating myself from society. Because if a woman like that can go through everything that she went through, if she can undergo all that stress, that trauma, the abuse, pick herself up from shambles and still find a way to function in society, and she was pursuing a degree and a job and, you know, some cool things that she was proud of, right? If she can say, Aaron, I believe there's plenty of good people out there. You have to be open to meeting them. And I was out here saying I was incompatible with 99% of people just because I wanted to be a baller. Who the fuck am I, bro? Pardon my French, but that was like some BS of myself at the time. And once I realized that, I was like, man, first and foremost, I wrote that down in my head. It's like, bro, that's going to be a bar later. Even though I was kind of distraught, I was like, okay, that's going to be something I can mention later. But since then, life just started opening up for me, because as soon as I started allowing myself to see people in their truest light and start seeing people and really respecting them, because I can't be a barista, bro. Like me doing what I do and then me seeing a barista at Starbucks, I'm not better just because my cash is higher or whatever, right? Like I can't do their job. You know what I mean? Like they can stand up all day and deal with people that don't have their caffeine, and then see them in maybe the next day and they're happy, and then the next person's sad, and dealing with that and memorizing the cups and the flavors. Like I can't do that, bro. That's not my strong suit. You know, neither can I be the person that's picking up trash all day, because I would feel like I would smell like trash. And the fact that they can do that and put food on their plate to whatever degree possible is respectable for me. You know, the fact that a school teacher can go and make less than 50 grand or 100 grand a year to do all the work that they have to do and to be responsible for leading the future generation of our corporate workers and our entrepreneurs and even criminals to a certain extent, if we're just being honest about the full scope of the education system. Meaning people that are just like, if all the third graders, you know, some of them are going to be politicians, some of them are going to be this, some of them are going to be that. But the fact that they're responsible for making sure that those people have, you know, we can prevent as much destruction as possible, and then we can encourage as much production as possible for society. I can't do that. You know what I mean? And I think if we can start really, really acknowledging each other on this planet, in this country, in our cities, in our communities, for our greatness and our willingness to show up every single day for ourselves and for everyone else around us, and our families and our loved ones and our animals and our future self and our past self. Like the fact that we're all able to do that I think is a beautiful thing that we can't take for granted. And the fact that some of us people that want to be more successful than others shun people and talk trash about modern society and this, it's like, bro, you don't have to entangle yourself with that if you don't like it. You know what I mean? There's so many people out here that say things about like the modern this and the modern that. Like, bro, why is your attention even going there? You know, people talk to me all the time about like problems in the world, and I don't even, like, part of me wants to help out how I can, but another part of me just wants to do is the best that I can at my assignment, and just let everything else kind of, you know, I just want to contribute in my way, however I can. But that doesn't make me better than anybody else just because I do what I do. And having that sense of humility actually serves you in the long term too when it comes down to success, because the person that identifies with like a number on a screen will start feeling inferior when they meet someone else with a bigger number on their screen, right? Like I've met people, guys, that make money their entire personality, and they're the money on the phone guys or the rented Lambo guys or this, that, the third. And they'll start talking you funny just because of, you know, material things, which is weird to me. It's like, man, that's another story for another day. But it's like, bro, if you meet someone that has more, or someone that actually owns a Lamborghini, or someone that's actually making the money you're pretending you look like you have, like, you're going to start feeling inferior. And I know that if Bank America if it vanished, or if Chase vanished, or like Wells Fargo or whoever you have as a bank, if your black card just stopped working, like who would you be? And that's why I'm very grateful that the last thing in my life that's really started falling into place for me is finances, because I learned how to develop my body. I learned how to develop my mindset. I learned how to be a good dude before things started coming in, because now I know how it feels like to have nothing. I know what it feels like to have a little something, and I know how it feels like to grow every single day. Like things have been falling into place really, really cool. And I wouldn't be living the life I had if I was still isolating myself, guys, because like I said, I'm recording this entire podcast right after a networking event where I get to see my friends from all over the country, where I get to see two guys, Joe and Afis, that helped me out when it comes down to building this version of myself today. I've become a better man for my family, my friends, my associates, my growing team with basics, and the audience here for the Get Your Shit Together Man show. So never stop pushing for being socially connected, guys. If you all haven't read How to Win Friends and Influence People, go ahead and do so immediately. I think it's a book that many people have on their bookshelf, but they don't really internalize the material. And unfortunately, you have to understand that successful people and unsuccessful people have the same resources, the same time, the same energy, the same really everything if you want to break it down. But your resources don't matter as much as your resourcefulness. And once you start understanding the gaps in this world, guys, you're going to start being more proactive with claiming your spot, with doing the things that are hard initially, but are going to be good for you long term. And when you're someone that's working from home, like a lot of people do nowadays, including myself, it's easy to isolate yourself. But just because it's easy doesn't mean you should do it. There's certain things that should be easy, but certain things like that, man, it's the same exact step, man. Like if you were to work out and your workout's a walk in the park, literally, or you're lifting weights and you're not pushing yourself, is it really that effective? Like push yourself to get into either a city, an environment, or a community of some sort that's going to allow you to express yourself in the most authentic manner possible. And when you're more successful, there is a certain degree of incompatibility you're going to have with certain people. But once you start developing your friend group of people that are like yourself or that are heading in the right direction that you want to be in, then it's much easier to, get rid of that lonely thing, man. I think even in the Bible, bro, that's to bring like Christianity into it. I pray to what I pray in, but I don't want this to be like a one-dimensional show, right? You believe in whatever you want to. I remember in the Bible, I think they said something about a man should not be alone. That's when he made the woman. But I'm just talking about in general, right? Ways that I've learned how to stop being isolated is, one, I've stopped being so hard on others. I don't judge other people for not being like me. A good rule I've had inside of my head for a long time is I don't judge people by the standards that I hold for myself if they don't hold those standards for themselves already. All right. So if someone's not trying to be a millionaire, billionaire, and I want to be a millionaire, billionaire, I don't judge them for not wanting that. I just let them do them, and I try to hold them to the standards they set for themselves. So if they want to be a 9-to-5 worker, which is completely cool, I've always thought it was very corny when business owners diss 9-to-5 workers, because that's kind of like who runs your business when you scale things out, right? But if someone wants to do that, then if you want to, I'm not saying you have to judge people, but it's like, okay, well, we can't even show up to work. Okay. That's when you can start losing respect for someone, because again, respect is earned, it's not given. Me learning how to be less judgmental with people has been a big character flaw that I've had in myself that I've had to kind of fix. And as soon as I was able to heal that within myself, I just started realizing that me judging other people was me trying to reject them before I felt like they would reject me, if I'm being completely honest. And if you resonate with that at all, maybe that's the reason why you think everyone's a loser, or you think everyone's wicked, or you think the world is all jacked up because you actually think you're jacked up. That's another story for another day. Secondly, I started accepting that we see the world as we see ourselves. So a good line I like using when I'm dating or when I'm just getting to know somebody in general is, just out of curiosity, how do you see the world? And if they're not coming at it from a space of super rational thinking and a place from wholesome self-esteem, and they're just being, completely transparent with the economic climate or whatever's going on in the world, More than likely, if they're just giving me an emotional response, if they say they're lazy, disorganized, and dishonest, I know they're telling me that they are lazy, disorganized, and dishonest. Point blank, period. That's the way that I've always interpreted that question. But if they tell me it has a lot of potential and there's plenty of love to go around for everybody, then I know that they're telling me that about themselves. So once I started understanding that your perception creates reality, not only the perception that you see the world through, but also people's perception of yourself, mastering those two perceptions is really going to change everything for you once you know how to maximize both of them. And last but not least, I stopped trying to be a superhero. I think many times people want to be seen as this giant without understanding that there's an inverse relationship between looking like a giant and actually being a giant, right? So let me put it this way. This entire podcast, it's been going on for about 37 minutes. I've been sharing some pretty vulnerable things with you all, right? And to be completely transparent, I feel like a twerp. I feel tiny. I feel like I shouldn't be telling the internet about an insecurity or two. I feel like I shouldn't be telling people that thought I was doing really good earlier because I was Mr. Player, Mr. this or that I was actually coming from a place of hurt. Like, if the part of me doesn't want to say that stuff out loud and put it online and then tell people to go watch it, right? It makes me feel tiny. But here's the thing. Vulnerability makes you in the moment feel small, but it makes you look like a giant in front of other people. And the consumer and the average person nowadays, guys, is very, very smart, right? So the more small you feel, the more giant you look when you're being more vulnerable, right? But the inverse is also true too, meaning that if you are trying to feel giant, people are going to look for reasons to tear you down, right? So once you can understand that, where when you're being more vulnerable, it makes you look like a giant in front of others because of how much you've overcome. But whenever you're trying to be too up, and you don't have that vulnerability mixed in, you're just going to look small compared to others, even though you're doing better than most people, if that's the case. Because if you're watching this podcast, odds are you're either on your way to achieving massive success, or you're there already, or you are, just seeking improvement in your life as a whole. And that's what we're trying to do here with the Get Your Shit Together, Man show. Because I wish when I was coming up, I had someone look me dead in the face and tell me to get your shit together, man, in the message that I'm kind of portraying to you all. Because I'm all about strength, I'm all about stoicism, I'm all about mental toughness, but I'm not about becoming an asshole in the process of it. Pardon my French. But that's not what I'm about, man. I'm not about being an unemotionally healthy third bag just because you want to achieve success, man. Like, I'm all about like peace. I'm all about kindness. I'm all about respect. I'm all about loyalty. I'm all about integrity. I'm all about progress. I'm all about respect. Like, these are things that I stand by in every regard possible. And I'm all about accountability too. If I mess up, I want people to call me out for it. I'm all about honesty. Like, I want people to know that when I'm in their life, I'm going to tell them how it is, regardless if they like it or not. I went out to dinner with someone a while back. Dude was talking out of pocket. We were all kind of chatting. He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm in the red and I'm broke right now." I said, "Bro, you can't be telling that to people. Like you can't be saying that out loud, because if this girl's into to dudes that wear like these kind of jackets and she's looking at you and you're saying you're in the red or broke, say, bro, it's gonna make you look out of pocket." Or if you're talking about personal business with your dating life in public and there's a woman right around the corner, so you gotta have etiquette around people, man. I've always been that person to call them out on their stuff, not because I think they should change and be like me or they should be a certain mold, but I wish I would have had someone do that, because I've made some of those mistakes when I was younger and I was foolish and I was inexperienced with understanding how to fit into society and contribute in the best manner possible, right? So I really want to share that story with you all earlier about isolation, because as soon as my ex-girlfriend at that time shared that with me, I just started seeing life for what it was. Because if a woman like that can go through what she was going through and tell me that at the time, my excuse for isolating myself was complete bogus, right? So maybe yours is too. If it's not, hey, no biggie. You can lock yourself up in a room all day, continue watching these YouTube videos. If you have an online business or something, just drop ship all day and just make your cash and never talk to anybody. That's the life you want to live. Go for it. For me, I can't rock like that, man. I'm all about meeting good people, and regardless of where they're at, whether they're making more money than me or less money than me, whether they're bigger or smaller, I don't care. I'm all about meeting good people with genuine intentions that actually want to change their life for the better, right? So thank you all for watching. If you want to do that too, and you want to get around people that are genuinely connecting with others also, and you have a fitness goal you want to achieve, go ahead and book a free 15-minute game plan call with myself personally using the second link in the video description of this YouTube video. You can go ahead and book a free 15-minute game plan call so we can discuss whether or not we can help you out with your fitness. We'll make a workout plan for you, give you nutrition guidance, and completely dialed in nutrition plan as well, and group coaching calls that we have 3 times a week, right? We have a call on Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Awesome stuff. We have our growing coaching team also at Basics, where things have just been going in a really, really cool manner as of late. And you can also, tap in with myself personally if you get like the year-long package. That's kind of like the incentive. You get access to myself, right? And you can also check our Average to Alpha webinar about the Alpha Accelerator kind of thing that we do here. At Basics, again, this whole podcast is built by Basics. You can go ahead and learn more about my story, but with how I went from average to alpha, transformed my whole life with fitness. Fitness was the foundation for me becoming the version of myself I am today. And I've also helped other men all over the world, 28 states across the country, Canada, Sweden, Australia, Finland, the Netherlands, and Switzerland, build better bodies without having to sacrifice the foods they enjoy, right? Also, we have Get Your Shit Together Man merchandise. You can go ahead and go to getyourshittogethermanmerch.com or gystmmerch.com. You can go ahead and visit. You can use code Aaron15 for 15% off your order. And that's my little gift back to you all also. Go ahead and join our newsletter. That way when we drop new episodes and we have guests or we have any surveys that we want to do, again, you can go ahead and participate in those. If you have any ideas, you can also submit your ideas for videos. And we should be ready to rock now. So thank you all for listening. I love you all very much. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel for new videos frequently. And if you're on Spotify or Apple, please leave a review. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Share this with a friend. And again, if no one's told you in a minute, I'll tell you right now, it's time to get your shit together, man. See ya.